Hi, I'm JP here for Warrior Sound, and in these videos we're going to learn all about Garageband for iOS. Garageband iOS is a powerful mobile recording device, or referred to as a digital audio workstation or DAW, on iPad, iPhone and iPod Touch. I'm going to show you how you can get audio and sound into the app to record and build up a song, a podcast, a soundscape, soundtrack for a film, or even prep it for a live performance. Garageband helps you create great music directly on your iPad or your iPhone or your iPod Touch. You can play and record realistic touch instruments, or plug in your amp or your own instruments or your microphones. You can choose from thousands of built-in loops and sound effects, and even record your own loops and add them into the mix. In this video, we're going to go through and understand Garageband's interface, where things are and how you interact with it. So when you download Garageband for the first time, you're shown a welcome screen, and then when you launch it after that, it's going to show you this. This is the song browser. So it's basically the Garageband folder inside the Files app in iOS 11 and 12. This is where your projects are stored. Now from here, we can tap Create Document, which will bring up a new project, or we can go onto an existing one for further editing. There's some other options here that we're going to go into a little bit later, but for now, I'm going to choose Create Document. Once you've chosen Create Document, it's going to show you two different paths that you can actually get audio into Garageband. And this is the first one. This is tracks. So at the top here, you've got tracks, and then the other side of that is live loops. I'm going to go into both of these right now. Tracks is a great way, and it's probably the more traditional way that people would know about getting audio into a digital audio workstation. So what it does is it shows you a couple of instruments or a couple of paths or ways of getting audio in. So if we start with a keyboard, and then under that we've got a couple of options. We'll go into them in depth later on. We've also got drums, and then you can create your own beats with acoustic drums, with electronic drums, with a beat sequencer. You've got amp, so you can plug in your guitar or bass and play through amps and stomp boxes. Obviously you could do that with a audio interface. You've got the audio recorder. Now this one can either use the microphone of the device you're using, or again an audio interface and plug in a microphone for voice or for an instrument. You've got then strings, bass, guitar and world, and these are your multi-touch instruments. After that you've got the drummer. Now the drummer is different to drums. Drums is where you're creating the beat yourself and actually figuring out where everything goes for that. The drummer is a virtual session drummer. So you pick the drummer, the style they play, and what kit they're playing, and then it does it for you. Two extra things on tracks. You've got external. So if you've got another app that's got a great sounding keyboard and you want to bring that in, now you can. So you've also got audio unit extensions and inter-app audio. If you're familiar with Audio Buzz, you'll be familiar with this. The last one is the sound library. So the sound library is by Apple, and they are releasing free instruments, sounds and loops, and they just keep adding them. You can download them, and they're completely free, and they just download straight inside Garageband. The other way is live loops. So live loops at the top there, if you tap that, it's going to show you a different user interface. And this shows you a lot of boxes. Now, loops are different to tracks. Tracks, I would say, is where you have a linear recording for each instrument. So you're manipulating one instrument at a time. Live loops is already playing with pre-recorded loops or samples, or adding your own samples and then performing that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, we've got a couple of different boxes. So Apple have created presets, or almost like demos. So we've got them in different ones here, like rock and EDM and house and chill. And we're going to go into those, and I'm going to show you the user interface for that a little bit later. So I'm going to show you the user interface for tracks, and I'm going to use the keyboard as an example. Okay, so we're going to look at tracks. So I'm going to start with the keyboard. I'm just going to pick the keyboard in the middle, and it'll launch the last keyboard you use. I'm going to use the grand piano. So I'm going to show you the user interface. There's three main elements here. So the top one you've got is the control bar. That's where it says My Songs and the strip across that. Then you've got the ruler, which is part of the controlling. Underneath that, you've got the control area, and then underneath that, you've got the play area. On the top bar here, we've got My Songs. If I hit that, that's going to take me back to Files. It's going to take me out of the song completely. It will automatically save if you hit that, so don't panic if you hit it by mistake. The next one is this song browser, which we've just been in, where it said drums and guitar and everything else. That's that little square button there. Next door to that is the edit view. Now that's what you would traditionally see in GarageBand or Logic when you launch it on a Mac, where it shows you basically the different strips, and that's what you're going to see at the end when we've recorded something. Next door to that is some settings. Now they are instrument settings, so there's settings of the instrument you're playing with right now. So if I tap on that, I'll just show you that. So it says there grand piano, and it's got track settings, the output, and this is just for the grand piano. Obviously, if you've got any plugins, we've got a couple of little plugins there, and some master effects as well. We'll go into that a little bit later. In the middle, you've got the transport bar. It's real simple. You've got 3 buttons, and you've got the record, you've got the play, and you've got the go back or the pause or the stop, and they change depending on what you're doing with them. Next door to that is your master volume, and that's the volume of the whole project. Then you've got the metronome. If it's blue, it's on. If it is white, it's off. And then next door to that, you've got the spanner icon and a little question mark. And that question mark is a help button. It's really useful actually. If you are stuck, then just press that. It'll show you where things are if you're not familiar with it. Underneath that is the ruler, and you've got 8 bars of time where we're going to record. Now, by standard, GarageBand iOS starts with 8 bars, and then when you record to the 8th bar, it goes back to the first bar again. There's a little plus underneath the question mark or next door to 8th bar, and if you tap on that, you can actually have a different section, or you can have a section for a verse, a section for a chorus, or you can turn on what's called automatic. And automatic, once it gets to the 8th bar, will go to the 9th, 10th, and carry on going until you hit stop. Or manual, as I say, you can actually go 8 bars, 16 bars, 15 bars, whatever you need. So underneath that is where it says grand piano. This is what's called the control area. Now, on a grand piano, there's no other controls really other than sustain, which is underneath that. But if I was to tap in the control area, this is where I change the sound. So where it's icon of the grand piano, if I tap on that, I can tap the electric piano and give that a second, and then what it's going to do is going to change it. So any controls that you have for that instrument will appear in this area. So as you can see, I've got tremolo, chorus, I've got a pitch wheel. You wouldn't get that on a grand piano. If I go to the smooth clav, you've got a couple of different controls there as well. If I go to something like an organ, let's go to the solo organ for example, it changes even more. So we've got things like drawbars, and we've got a little bit of distortion there, chorus on or off. So it's really, really cleverly worked out that that area is specific to that instrument. I'm going to go back to the grand piano for now. Underneath that, we've got a couple of controls which are all to do with playing, and then we've got the play area, which is where the keyboard is. So we've got octave up and down, and we've got sustain. Now you can hold the sustain down and just tap on the note, and it'll keep doing it. Or what you can do is you can lock it, so you can swipe it and it's permanently on, and it keeps its hand free. Or you can unswipe it to obviously unlock it. At the moment, there's a button in the middle which says glissando. So if I use my finger and draw my finger up and down the screen, you'll just hear it go past every note. You can tap on that and go to scroll. Now, if I then tap on C3 and then move my finger up, it's going to move the keyboard up, which is really useful. If you want to go up and down the keyboard really quickly, you can do that. Or if you leave it on glissando, it's like you're drawing your finger up and down the keyboard. Next door to that, we've got scale, and this is where it gets really interesting, because if you are a guitarist and you want to record some stuff in, but you want to also put some keyboards down, but you don't know how to play keyboards, but you know you just want to turn scale, these buttons here basically change the way the play area is. So obviously you've got black and white keys for a piano. If I go to scale, I go, right, well, I know I want it in major, it's in C because I've put it in C in the settings. If I go to major, what it does, it takes those keys away and just replaces them with the keys I need from C3 to C4. Quite useful. You've got a couple of other ones there, you've got quite a few actually. So you've got things like minor, you've got blues, you've got Mixolydian. So I'd encourage you to go through them and just see how they change the way the play area changes. Next door to that, we've got a little keyboard, and if you tap on that, it shows you how the keyboard is laid out. You can turn things on like velocity, and it will show the controls and show how you're tapping it. You can tap harder or softer, and it will change the way it's played. You can widen the keys if you've got big fingers like me, and you can also have a second keyboard as well, so you can have 2 keyboards, one on top, one on the other, and they are different because we've got C2, C3, C4, and then there's C4 again, C5, C6. So it's quite useful for that as well. I am going to keep it to 1 keyboard just for the moment. Next door to that, we've got an arpeggiator, so we can run that, and then it'll ask us how you want it to be run, and it'll go red, so literally by holding a couple of notes down, turn run off, and it'll put the arpeggiator back to white, which means it's off. The last one is a way of actually playing in a completely different way. So this is actually a chord structured way. So if you know what chord you want, again, like I said, if you don't know how to play piano, but you know you need a C, a G, and an A minor, then you can actually play it with this one. So this last little button here, what we can do is, if you tap on that, it changes the play area completely. So the play area all moves up, and we've got a load of chords. You can change these chords in the settings, by the way. And what this does is it shows you a grey area, a white area, with the note on top. So if I was to tap on that note, it gives me different versions of C going up and down, and then the grey area is your left hand, which would be the bass. So I can literally, with 2 fingers, play a bass and a top. Again, you've still got the sustain there, you've still got an arpeggiator as well. And then above that, you'll notice it says grand piano, and next to that, it says autoplay. Somewhere on the multi-touch instruments, there's an autoplay always when you're in this mode. So what autoplay does, instead of you tapping it, you have to tap it continuously to get the notes coming out of it. You can turn autoplay on. There's always 4 versions of autoplay. You'll notice that sort of scale goes away, and we've just got right hand, left hand, and the note. So if I just press C at the very top, it's going to pick that whole strip, and it's going to continuously play for me. Just tap it again and it stops. What I want you guys to realize as well is, and certainly please do discover it, is when you go through the different sounds, so you've got grand piano, if I go and do the organ, it won't be the exact same playing. It'll be a different playing that's suited to the organ. Really, really clever. They've done it for pretty much every instrument that's there. And that is how we play it. So what I'm going to do is, I'm actually going to use autoplay just for this demonstration. And then what I'm going to do is, I'm going to record 8 bars in, and I'm just going to show you how that looks. So when I click record, it's going to give me a 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to keep the metronome going. And then what we'll do is we record our piece. You would have noticed there at the very top, just stop that for the moment. You'll notice at the very top, the ruler has now gone green, which means that there is something in there. So what we didn't want to do is we want to see that. So we're going to go into now what would be the traditional look of a DAW. So the second button along, which looks like sort of 3 lines, sort of horizontal with a couple of gaps, that is the tracks view. If we tap that, it's going to change it, and there we go. So that is our 8 bars recorded in. We have a visual representation of it, which actually, if you tap into it and go into edit, it's MIDI, and we can actually edit that later on if you want to. And then you'll notice that the tracks button at the very top changes to a little keyboard with a little gear around it, meaning keyboard settings. So if you tap that again, you can go back to where we were. So we can alternate between the two. Nice little tip for you, if you want to do that, you don't want to tap that, you can double tap the icon on the left hand side. So there's a piano icon there, double tap that, it'll do exactly the same thing. So the other thing as well is, now we're in this mode, you'll notice that we've got the loops option back in the top right hand corner in the control bar. And then also we've got the effects there, and also on the bottom left hand side of the whole screen we've got a plus. So this is how we're going to add another element. So if we go to plus, the instrument browser. So then what I can do is I can pick, for example, I'm going to go the other way and I'm going to pick a drummer. So if I pick an acoustic drummer, this will automatically add an 8-bar drum kit in for me, and then I can pick the drummer that I want. So we want pop rock, that's fine, I'll just keep with Kyle. We'll make it a little bit louder. We want some tambourines in there and a little bit more fills. And you'll notice as I'm doing all that, this yellow 8-bar is already been filled in. That's basically it. All I need to do now is hit play, and it's going to play the piano plus this drummer. Even while it's playing, I can go back to tracks view. Okay, so that's just a real quick look at tracks view. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to go back a step. I'm going to show you live loops. Okay, so we've gone back a step now and we've gone into, as if we're creating a new project again, and we've gone into live loops. Live loops, as I said before, is a great way if you're not a musician but you do want to create some music, or if you know the kind of sound you want. Real great way of creating some audio. If you were going to add it to a movie, or if you just want to do a bit of performance, you can still add stuff in and still play stuff in as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go do a completely brand new one. The way this works is tracks obviously is linear, where you've got one track underneath another, as you saw. This kind of works in the same way, but we've got boxes. So instead of recording that way, we're recording that way. So in the top right hand corner, you can see there we've got loops, which is next door to the spanner icon. If I tap on that, it brings up an entire library of loops. Now at the moment it's way over 1,000 loops, and Apple keep releasing more as well. You can also bring your own files in as well. So if you've recorded something and you want it to be looped round, there's a files option at the top of this menu, you can bring it in. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you these. So as we go through, you'll see green ones and blue ones. The blue ones are audio, the green ones are MIDI, and you'll see how many bars that track is, or that loop is. So I'm going to use the float beat, and I'm just going to tap on that. Now that's playing at the BPM of the project. If you want to change the BPM, you can change it in the settings. Now I quite like that, that's cool. So it's done that for me. I've just got 8 bars there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold my finger down on that. It'll bounce under my finger, and then the menu automatically goes away. And you can see there, while I've got it there, it's put a yellow box around saying, where do you want this loop to be? So I'm going to put it at the beginning. The icon changes on the left-hand side, and then the menu automatically comes back up saying, right, what's next? What loop do you need? So we're going to have a look at this one, which is only 2 bars long. Happy with that. So I'm going to hold that one down, I'm going to put it underneath. Any loops that are underneath each other will play together. If they are beside each other, then that's one section and that's a different section. So now what I can do is I can just get rid of the menu. I can tap on the loop individually, or there's a button at the bottom which is a triangle, and that is a whole scene select. So I'm going to start individually, stop them, and then show you what happens when you hit the scene selector. You'll notice it's obviously showing you a visual representation of it going around. Okay, so just to show you that, obviously at the moment I've hit, it's almost like pause, because you'll see that the loops are flashing. If I then hit the back button, it'll stop the loops completely and put them back to 12 o'clock. If I hit the triangle, it's just going to play all the loops together at the same time. If I hit it again, it'll take it back. So you'll notice the top one has gone back to 12 o'clock. If I hit stop, again, it's like a pause, and then I hit it back, and then it puts it back again. This is really, really useful, because what you can do is you can create a beat, create a couple of backings straight away, and you'll notice, just like in tracks mode, on the left-hand side, underneath the last thing you put in is a plus button. If we tap that, we can bring in another loop, or we can bring in an instrument. So you could bring up a load of stuff, you could bring up a vocal, you can then record that vocal in. It's a really, really clever way. Now, the one thing that people ask, as soon as you put a loop in, you go, right, I don't like that loop. How do I get rid of it? Or how do I move it to a different part? So the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see these little boxes with a pencil marker, and that's called edit. When I tap that, all the loops go dark blue, and then what that means is you can then move them to wherever you want, or if you tap on them and then tap on it again, it gives you a couple of extra things like delete, copy, paste. You can even do it with the little triangles, and if I tap on that, we could duplicate this, so we could have a load of them going through, just keep adding stuff. We could rename it, or we can delete it. The other option you can do as well is in the normal mode, which is the normal play mode. You can tap on the icon and then tap the icon again and hit delete, but that will delete the whole strip. I hope that gives you a little bit of an insight into loops. What the last part of loops is the effects. Now you can have effects on both tracks and loops. It's just a nice little feature. It works better with loops, I think, but when you've got something playing, there's an FX button at the top there. If you tap that, it brings up this little bar, and then while you're playing, you can mess around with a couple of different effects that Apple have made, and I'll give you an example of that now. So you can play loops almost like a performance. You'll notice that when I did all of that, I haven't hit the record button. So when you do hit the record button, then it records the way you've triggered it or the way you've looped it. It'll even record the effects and everything as that on a separate strip as well. And then that puts it into tracks mode. So then you can edit it as a solid song. So then if you want to change the front or change the back, or you can keep it like this and just perform it live. So I hope that gives you an insight into the user interface of GarageBand, and we're going to do a couple of more videos and go a little bit deeper into the different subjects. Thanks for watching. In this video, we're going to show you how to record vocals into GarageBand for iOS. There's a couple of different ways we can do this. So with GarageBand, we have the option to either record vocals or even an instrument into it. And we've got the track that we used in the previous video just as the demo. And what we can do is I can show you how we actually get vocals in. So there's a plus button at the bottom, and this is tracks view. There's also the plus button in live loops as well. And what we're going to do is when we press plus, it's going to just take us back to the sound selector. I'm going to scroll along and I'm going to use audio recorder. Now the audio recorder, if I launch it right now, it'll activate the microphone that's built onto the device you're using. So for example, the iPad. So if I do that, I'm going to take you through the user interface for this first, and then we're going to talk about different ways we can actually record. The user interface, the very top of that bar is the same as always. So that is our control bar. And then underneath that, we've got the ruler, which is the 8 bars again. And then underneath that, this now changes over for vocals or for instrument recording. So going from the left hand side, we'll have an in, and you can see as I'm talking on the actual screen, you can see my input there. So in is for input, out is for output. So think of it like a chain going from the left hand side through GarageBand and then back out again. So right now it says in, and you can see my voice going up and down in the green. Next door to where it says in, looks like a little jack, and if you actually tap on that, it's giving you the input settings. So all the information about it. Now at this point, this is where you can change things. So we can either have the microphone here, or we can go into app audio, and that's where you'd use, for example, if you're using a different vocal app, which has got a effect on, you can bring that in. And you can see the level there, so we can drag the slider to set the input level, or we can just tap it on automatic, and then what it'll do is it'll give you an optimal amount. On the automatic side, the downside with that is that if you are singing quite quietly and then all of a sudden you belt out a note, it's going to drop it down quite a lot and does a little bit of ducking. So you can do automatic, and if that's fine, if you're singing relatively the same way, that's quite useful. As well, on the bottom, there's also a noise gate, so we can turn on the noise gate so it will actually only kick in the audio at a certain decibel level. At the bottom there, you'll see it just says mic channel. That will change depending on what you've got plugged in to GarageBand. So at the moment, it's not selectable because all we're using is the microphone that's actually on the device. In the middle, we've got what effect we want on there. Now, again, just like you would choose a different sound on the piano or the keyboard or any of the touch instruments, you see this bit says lead vocals, and at the top there, you've got studio and you've got fun. So with studio, of course, it's geared towards actually recording studio styles. So we've got things like radio ready, heavy distortion, extreme stereo, narrator, for example, if you're doing podcasting. But then also you've got things like producer effects. So you've got effects that come from guitars, you've got acoustic guitar effects. So obviously if you're plugging in an acoustic guitar, or if you're recording drums, a bit of sound for that. And then the fun side is exactly what it says. So you just basically record it, and it's got things like a chipmunk and a robot and monster, so it is just a little bit of fun. Depending on what you pick, I'll just show you there. So at the moment, if I pick one of them, so I'm going to pick telephone, you'll see that some of the control knobs change depending on what you're using. If I go into studio, then you'll see there's some control knobs under there. So we've got things like a basic compressor, we've got pitch control, tone, drive, vocal hall. Now on the other side, you'll see it says out. At the moment, nothing is coming out of this right now, and that's because we've not turned it on yet. Now I can record right now, no problem. Well, the only problem is that I can't hear it, because if I hit record, I can't hear the rest of the track. If I do that, then what's going to happen is you're going to get feedback where it's going to go out, come back in, and you won't be able to isolate the difference between the recording of the vocal and the music. So hit monitor, and it says to use monitoring, connect a pair of headphones or an external audio device to your device. What that does is it means that it knows that you're not going to get feedback, and also that you're going to be able to hear that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically, I would hit record. Again, it's giving me a 1, 2, 3, 4, and it just opens the recording. You can sing along or you can speak, and then you've got the metronome there. If you're just speaking, you might not want the metronome. And then it's going to hit the record, and then that's it, it's done. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a couple of different ways that you can record in whilst monitoring yourself as well. So the first way you can actually monitor yourself, of course, is with headphones. So I have a pair of headphones right here, and I'm going to use the adapter which you can get, which will plug it directly into the lightning connector. So as I plug this in, there we go, we'll plug that in, and you'll see that on the right hand side at the bottom now, where it says monitor off, it's now lit up in blue, which means it's selectable because I'll be able to hear the output. When I turn this on, you can now see as I talk that the output is active, and also the output from the master volume is active as well. Now the great thing about this, of course, is that it's the simplest way to get a recording in. It's nice and quick. The downside is that it's using the microphone on the device. If you want a professional recording, you would use a different microphone. Also, this microphone picks up everything. It's not like a directional microphone, so of course if you're in a loud environment it's not ideal, and also the quality isn't as good as a professional microphone. Next I'm going to show you a slightly different way to record in. So the next way we're going to look to record is just by using headphones that have got a microphone built in. So the simplest ones are iPhone ones. So these ones, obviously, this is a lightning connector one, you've also got the jack one as well. And you've got your headphones, and then right in the middle there we've got a microphone. So it acts in just the same way. You plug it in, and then the monitor is available. So I'll just put that into my ear for a second. And then the great thing about this is, of course, the microphone is right here. So if I just tap that, you can see it's really, really loud. If I put that on, there we go. Now, you still can't select the microphone channel because there only is one. And when you plug these in, the microphone on the device, whether it be an iPad or an iPod or your iPhone, will disable, and then it'll go to this one. So I can put this here, I can move this up and down. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you the difference between recording with a couple of different bits. I'm just going to turn that vocal hall down just a little bit. There we go. So you can see there with the input level, I'm going to turn that onto ordering back on again. There we go, because it changes it. Now with monitoring on, you can't have automatic. So automatic is just sitting there, no problem at all. But if you want to monitor it, you need to basically select the levels yourself. Inter-app audio, of course, is where you connect different audio apps. So it'll come through that before it gets to hit this, which is really, really clever. Obviously with monitoring on, we can hear the input of the sound. And the noise gate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this on and then move the slider. Now you'll notice as I'm talking that you're going to get some of my voice and not all as I talk quieter. So the more I move this down, the more open the gate is. So I don't want to go too deep into that because, of course, it's just a simple gate, and it just says drag the slider to set the level of reducing the input noise. This is very useful, obviously, with a microphone like this. Again, you could be in a loud environment, and then what it'll do is instantly cut off the audio recording, but you're still going to hear the outside world. So the downside, again, of headphones like this is the audio quality, and also the fact that it's hanging off your ear. So if you're using, say, iPhone ones, they're fine. They're obviously great because what you can do is, if you're recording, I can actually place it somewhere else and put that some there and keep the iPad here. But the downside is obviously that it's the quality of the recording. Also, if I was to talk like this, and you can see, and you probably can hear that, and I've lowered my voice a little bit because it's really, really loud, but you can hear how close I'm getting, and it sounds okay. But you might hear the rustle of my face against that. And also, if I talk over here like this, or I talk that way, it's going to pick up or not pick up depending on which direction you're in. And that's a very simple way to get audio in. The next way I'm going to show you is how I use it, which is with an audio interface. Okay, so you can see we've got a couple more things on the table here. And this is the where you would record or look to record if you are trying to get the highest quality. So what we've got here is a audio interface. This is a Focusrite 2i2. So what that means is 2 in and 2 out. And that is being plugged into this connector. So this connector is the Lightning to USB camera connection kit. So originally designed to actually plug in so you can plug your camera in and get photographs into your iPhone or your iPad. But musicians have found that actually it works with anything, pretty much. So anything for music. So you can plug a USB keyboard into this, or as we're about to do, is plug a audio interface in. Now an interface means that you can actually plug in things like an actual microphone with an XLR connector, or a guitar with a jack connector, which I've got over here. So I can plug that straight in. Now, whether having 2 in and 2 out, the 2 in is mono, so one for the left and one for the right. And what I can do is I can use one, or I could use 2 as, say for example, one microphone and one guitar. Or I could plug in a stereo keyboard and then just pan them left and right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug this in, and you're going to see on the screen something different. Now you're going to see this. This is basically showing you it cannot, it takes up too much power. Now this is 5 watts going into an iPad, for example, and the Focusrite takes up a little bit too much power. So what we're going to do is this second cable here is actually the lightning cable, and that generates power. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to plug that in and turn that on, and then what you'll notice is if we click OK, it disappears. And what's happened here is this has just become live. We've now got an audio device connected. You have plugged in an electric guitar or microphone or an audio device. In order to hear yourself, tap on turn monitoring. If using a microphone, obviously, it's recommended. It's recommended to use headphones to avoid feedback like we discussed earlier. So if I go turn on monitoring, it'll automatically turn on. Now at this point, we're not going to hear anything until I tap the microphone. So this is actually coming in, and I can't hear this at all, so my headphones are plugged in to the audio interface. I'm not going to go into too depth what an audio interface is, but obviously it means that I can plug in a instrument or a mic. I can also plug my headphones into this, and I can send this out as well to speakers, as well as all being plugged into the iPad. So if we put this back on, and I can talk directly into here, and I can adjust the volume myself. So this gives me much more control. And if you were doing a podcast or if you were literally singing, you can hear yourself. And of course, the microphone you use is going to be a lot higher, better quality. The other thing you'll notice actually on Garageband itself is on the bottom left-hand corner, it now doesn't say mic, it says 1, and then channel. So if we tap on that, it now knows that there are 2 inputs or 2 sources for the connection. So I can have this on input 1, which I'm plugged into. If I put it into input 2, there's nothing there at the moment. And then you've got stereo. So if you had, like, say, you can record a stereo keyboard, or you've got guitar effects going out into stereo, and you can record that as well. So that's just giving you a quick insight into the different ways of recording. Now, I use this one because, of course, we've got a couple of different microphones that you can use for either speaking or singing, like condenser microphones, obviously getting the quality out of that. Also, things like this, the Focusrite 2i2, there are many audio interfaces out there in the world, but the Focusrite has an amazing preamp. That's why I like to use it. And the other thing as well is I can change this over. So I'm just going to lower this down. 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. There we go. 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, and you can hear a slight difference there. You can also have what's called direct monitoring as well, which means that you hear the playback of the track coming through this as well as hearing what you're singing. So you've got the best of both worlds with that. Now, I'm not saying for any length of reason that the other two options are bad. They're not bad, they're just obviously, this is the highest quality. For example, I've still used the iPhone headphones if I just want to get something down really quickly. So if I just want to get something down, I've even done it where there's no backing track or like there's nothing else recorded. I just want to record an idea. I just want to put my guitar and play an idea. I'll just hit record and not hear the monitoring because there's nothing to monitor. I just want to hit it as a recorder, and you can just. I end up replacing that with a recorded version through this. So I just want to show you all the different options and a couple of different ways you can record. Now, another way of recording is actually using the sampler. And this is a different way of recording like vocals or a sound for a soundscape. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to dial this back a second, and what we'll do is we'll go into recording audio through the sampler. Okay, so we've shown you a couple of different ways of getting audio in, either just using the microphone right here, using headphones with a microphone adapter, and also using a audio interface. The other way of recording audio or sounds or your vocals or whatever is by using the sampler. So I'm just going to go back a step, back to the chooser, and this obviously shows you voice or instrument. That's the same elements that we're using there of the audio recorder. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go into keyboard, but before I click on keyboard directly, underneath there you'll notice it says sampler. So if I click sampler, what this does is it brings up a keyboard that you can't play yet, because it hasn't got a sound for it. So this is the sampler, and it shows you the control area and the play area. And obviously the top strip is the same as if you've got a keyboard ready to record. And it says point your iPad towards a sound you want to record, tap start. After you stop recording, you can instantly play the sound on the sampler on the keyboard, which is great. Now you'll notice there's a little guitar jack there again, and again you can use a audio interface. You can use your headphones if you want to. You can change drag the slider for the input level as well. Now, all the way I've been talking, you can see the input level there in the new play area, which has this yellow look, and you've got this massive red start button. And you've got new sample and my samples. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go hey, and just go hey. Okay, and then I've got a track I want to go hey lots of times, and that way basically I'm going to record that and go straight in. So hit start, it's going to start opening the recording. Obviously we're using the microphone of the iPad here. Hey! And then stop it. Did you see that? So the great thing is basically now this is recorded it in. Hey! 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 So there it is on C3. Hey! 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 And I can instantly play it. Hey! 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 Now you'll notice as well as I play the actual sample, if I was to go up, my voice gets sped up, and if I play it lower, it goes slower. So you get that sort of either high pitch effect or that low pitch effect. Hey! 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 Hey, 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 hey. You've still got all the same things you can use, like sustain. We use glissando. Hey, 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 hey. And you can still change the scales if you want to. If you want to trim this down, you can do so. There's little yellow boxes, and you may have seen these in iMovie where you can trim a piece of footage. And it's exactly the same trimming technique. You could just drag those yellow boxes around. So you catch the end of it. Or we can make it faster. Hey, 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 hey. And then you'll see at the bottom here of this yellow box, you've got things like revert, shape, tune, rev, and loop. Rev is reverse. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So if you say hey backwards, it's yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Or loop, and what that'll do is if I scroll this that way, it'll just keep repeating it. Hey, 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 hey. So what's this useful for? So if you've got claps that you want to record, you could be recording for, or doing that for 4 minutes. Or you could record it once and then play it in, and then you could just copy and paste it and play it in all the way through. Or what you've got is you can actually find an amazing sound that there's out in the real world, but you want to use it as a keyboard. So I'm going to do a new sample, and I'm just going to create a tone. So, pa, that'll do. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim it to there. I'm going to loop that, so then that way it just continuously goes round. I can shape it slightly differently, so I want it to sort of down there a little bit. And we can tune it, so we can fine tune it down, which is really cool. So you can see as I shaped it, it's almost like a delay. We can revert that back, and revert that back, and revert that back, no problem. And if you go into My Samples, I did it there by going backwards, but if you go into My Samples, you can see the samples that you did, and then Apple have created some samples that you can play with. So we've got things like a dog bark. You've got So you can record things obviously out in the real world, sounds that you wouldn't normally find, and then obviously basically play them. And because you're going to be playing them, and they'll be played as MIDI, so you can then manipulate that later if it's out of time, or you can change things. So I hope that gives you an insight into getting vocals into GarageBand. What we're going to do in the next video is we're going to be looking at recording for podcasting. To record a podcast. So first of all, with a podcast, what I would advise is write out a plan. Write out the talking points, have some kind of structure to your podcast, unless it's obviously a natural conversation one. Then you need to choose how you're going to record it, which microphones you're going to use, whether you're going to use the built-in one, you can use your earbuds with the built-in microphone, or if you want to use something like this, which is an audio interface with a separate microphone. So I'm going to show you the basics of what we would do for podcasting as opposed to bringing in music, and then what we're going to do is show you a little bit about editing as well. So I'm going to create a new document, and this time we're going to use the audio recorder. So when we tap on that, it'll bring up the last one I used. Now normally it brings up, I think it's lead vocals, but we can actually tap on there and just click narrator. Narrator's really, really good. It's got a little bit of compression, resonance as well. Now this setup is already in a sense that we've got two inputs going into it as before with the audio interface. We're just going to use this microphone on input number 1. So it knows that because on the bottom left side we've got channel number 1. But we need to do a little bit of housekeeping with GarageBand first to set it up for podcasting. The first thing is we need to turn the metronome off. We don't want the metronome going on because we don't want a click going on all the way through talking. The second one is where the ruler is after number 8, you've got a little plus there. So at the moment it's set up to record from bar 1 to bar 8 and then go back to bar 1 again as a loop. We don't want that. We want it to record continuously. So if we go into that section, we can turn on automatic recording. And what that does is it'll just carry on recording until you press stop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to record a podcast, and then I'm just going to put my headphones on so we can hear the microphone, and we need to set the microphone up as well. So we've got the microphone here. It's not on at the moment for monitoring, so I'm going to need to turn it on for monitoring, which is the bottom right hand corner. So now it's on. You should be able to hear that, and we can hear an output coming through. What we also want to do as well is we want to press on the jack icon, and we want to turn on one or two different things. So we've got monitoring on, and that's fine, and we know which input it is. So this is coming through on input number 1 on a mic stand through to the audio interface and then through into the iPad. Then what we need to do is we need to click on noise gate, and you might hear as I talk a bit quieter how noise gate works. So what it does is obviously your audio level trails off. It cuts it out. So I'm going to adjust that and roll it down and drag the slider so for the level for reducing the noise input. So the reason you want that is because on a podcast, you don't want, the shuffling of feet if you're doing an interview or a squeaky chair or anything like that. So we're going to turn that basically to a nice level. Also, if you're using like I'm doing, like using a handheld microphone, you'll pick up all kinds of noise. So we don't if you're using it handheld. So that's also why I've got a mic stand. You can get a mic stand quite cheaply now. We're pretty much set up and ready to go. It's still going to give us a 1, 2, 3, 4. You can turn that completely off in the settings if you want to. But what we're going to do is I'm going to go through a quick recording now. The ruler's going to go red, and then that's the basics of us recording our podcast. Hello, this is John Paul, and we're going to have a quick look at doing podcasting, and we're going to talk about podcasting on this podcast. So we're using a microphone going into an audio interface, going through the camera connection kit into an iPad. And this uses Garageband on iOS, and we're recording straight in on channel number 1 on the actual microphone there. I'm going to stop talking so then you can see what's going on. Okay, so the rule has now gone blue, and what we can do is we can click the track edit mode and we'll be able to see our recording. There it is. We can use 2 fingers and pinch in and out and basically see the whole thing, or of course we can zoom back into a specific point. And then what we can do is we can actually have a look at trimming it down. Now I didn't speak at the very beginning. So you can tap on it, and what we can do is you've got these little bars at the side here, and what we can do is you can actually start trimming it out if you need to. You go further, and we can start trimming bits and bobs of the actual recording itself. Or what you can do is you can split it. So we can say, well, there's the recording there, and I started talking there. I can use the playhead and start dragging the playhead to where I need it to be. If I tap on the recording, you've got a couple of options there. So I'm going to go split, swipe down, and now what we've got is we've actually got 2 different options there. And what I can do is I can just get rid of that one. There we go. Now at this point what you can do, you've got a couple of options. We can actually go to the end of this recording and then hit record again and just carry on recording the next section. Or what we can do is we can hit plus and we can add a second microphone, maybe with a different sound, or if you've got someone else you want to record later on at a different location, they could be on a second level, so then you've got 1 level for you and 1 level for the person. And that's the basics of it. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to reset this back up, and what we're going to do is we're going to set this for what I would call advanced podcasting and multiple audio podcasting. Okay, so what we're looking to do now is we're looking to set it up again for multi-audio inputs. So we've got 2 inputs here. I've got the microphone on the mic stand here, and I've got another microphone here which is on input number 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go create document, click audio recorder. What I'm going to do, click more sounds, and if you click that you can pick which sound you want. So we're going to click narrator. And then when that loads, we need to do the same things, a bit of housekeeping, so setting up for a podcast. So again, we're going to turn the metronome off. We're going to click the plus button, and we're going to go into section A and turn the section length onto automatic. Then what we need to do is we need to set up the first microphone, which is this one. So it looks like it's already set up, but what we're going to do is we need to make sure that monitoring is on, and then I can hear myself. Fantastic. And then we're going to go noise gate, and we're going to drop that down a little bit so it's there. Okay, cool. So that's ready. So that's the first microphone. So for the guest microphone, which is this one for someone, whether you've got a guest or a co-host, we need to set up that one as well. So we're not going to hit record right now. We're going to go into the track view mode, and then straight away what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the plus. And what it's going to do is going to ask me what am I recording. So we're going to again hit more sounds and hit narrator again. So what you're going to see now is we're going to see a couple of different options here. So we've got 2 microphones now. And what we need to do is we need to turn on a system called multi-track recording. So we go to the gear icon, go to advanced, and if you put 2 on, it should turn that on automatically. So we can swipe out and we can have a look. So there we go. And we've got 2 there, but they're both on track 1. So the second one, I'm going to double tap the microphone icon, and we're going to change that one to track 2, which is this microphone here. And then what I can do is go back to the track view, double tap on the first microphone, make sure that's on track 1. It is. So the question is, of course, how do you get, as you can see, as I'm tapping on one, it keeps changing which microphone I'm using. So how do we record both at the same time? So the simple thing is that when you put multi-track recording on, you may notice that on the bars here, we've got the volume for each track. We've also got a monitor, which is a little orange icon, and we've got a red record icon. So if we tap the red record icon on the second track, both come up, and now you'll hear both microphones. Quite simple. Obviously you need to make sure your volumes are set on your audio interface so it comes in. And then what we're going to do as well is we are just going to make sure that we've got everything set up the way we want it. And what I normally do in this scenario is I will change the name of them. They're both said narrator because that's the name of the track. What I can do is tap on the microphone and then just rename it. So we could have host, for example, or your name. So I can just put JP in there. And then we can put this one, we'll tap it and then tap it again, click rename, and I'm just going to call this one guest. Now I'm just going to make sure that everything's okay with both microphones. We've got the noise gate in there, that's fine on that one. And then I'm just going to make sure that the other one is set okay as well. There we go. Now we didn't turn the noise gate on for the second one, so we want to do that as well and bring that down. So let's check that out. 2 2 2 2 2 1 2. Hello, 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 hello. There we go. Cool. So we've got it on both. And again, it's just obviously in case someone's sort of like, you know, shuffling with feet or, you know, a door in the distance. It won't pick that up, or try not to pick that up. So we're ready to go. Now, normally we'd have a second person here, like a co-host or someone else. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go between the two microphones just to show you how this is going to look. Now, I'm actually going to put this into the track view mode, just so you can see it record both of them at the same time. You'll also notice as well, as we actually hit the little red records on each track, we've got a number 2 on the main record at the top, and that just shows you that there's 2 channels recording. So here we go. Hello, this is JP, and what we're going to be doing is talking about podcasting. So I'm going to show you how to podcast on not 1 but 2 microphones. So this one is mine, this one is the microphone which would be the host, for example, and then we've also got another microphone which would be the guest, which is this one. So now I'm talking on the guest microphone, and you can see on Garageband that we've got the audio from one and the audio from the second one, and they're completely separate. I'm going to go back over to the host microphone, which is me, and then obviously you can see me talking there as well. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to this one, and then back to this one, and then back to this one, and then back to this one, and they could even be talking at the same time. So I'm now going to stop the recording. I'm going to show you a couple of more features. Okay, so we've got a couple of features there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to swipe this back, swap the icons back so I can just see what I want to see. They're both on monitoring, so I can still hear both microphones. So if I don't want that and I don't want to hear the microphones, you just tap the little orange one and you can turn monitoring off, or you can double tap on the microphone, tap the jack on the in output and turn monitoring off for all. But I'm going to keep it on now just so you can hear me. So we've now got the recording of myself and a guest, for example, and what I'm going to do is with this guest I can move it around, or with the other one I can move it around. I can trim as well. So what I want to do is I actually want to trim this down, so you can use the edges and trim it down, because I didn't start speaking until a little bit while later, and then I can actually put it in there, make sure it's roughly the same. There we go. Or what I can do is I can split it. So if I want to cut this up, I can actually use the playhead and move the playhead up and down into a point where I want to cut it in half, and then you can tap on it and say split. You'll see a little scissor with a line down. You literally just drag your finger down like that, and now we've got 2 separate items that we can use to split with. So it's basics of editing for Garageband, and also for podcasting in general. And what we're going to do as well is I want to bring in a bit of music. So I've got an MP3 that I want to bring in as the backing track for my podcast. So I've already imported it and put it in files. So all I'm going to do is click on the loops, and then we've got all our loops, and I can reset that, no problem. But at the top here it says Apple Loops or Files. So I'm going to go to Files, and there it is. It's Jingle MP3. Now, if you can't see the one you put in Files, it just says at the bottom there, Browse Items from the Files app. So if I tap that, and then when it comes up, you can see there it is there. It's right next door to the GarageBand one for me. And then I'll click that, and it'll just import it in. So what we're going to do is I'm literally just going to hold my finger down like I would with a loop, and drag it to a new track. It'll input the audio file for me. So there we go. So it's going to input the audio file for me, and we're just going to change this over. So I'm going to stop monitoring this now, so I don't need to hear this microphone, because we've got everything we need to record on it. So I'm going to swipe this away, and before we do that, just double tap on that one. There we go. So you can still hear this one. There we go. That's on channel 2. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to turn off monitoring on all the tracks. There we go. Because we no longer need it. So what we're looking to do now is we're going to do a bit of editing. So I'm going to go into the edit view and then swipe this back. So we've got JP, and we've got our guest, and we've got our music. So we can swipe across, and you'll notice obviously we've got the volumes for each one. Now, the difficulty I've got is that the volume of this jingle is the same all the way through. What I want it to do is I want it to lower down when I'm talking and when the guest's talking, and then bring it back up at the end. So how we do that is we're going to pinch this out a little bit further, and I'm going to grab myself and the guest and bring it along a little bit, just so we've got a little bit of an intro. And what we can do is we can do what's called automation. Now you could do it manually or automatically. So automation is a set of instructions to tell a track to do something. So in GarageBand we've got volume for automation, and how you access it is I'm going to go to the jingle one, tap on it, we tap on it again, and you can see there's an option for automation. This brings up a new panel, so this is inside editing now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit the volume of the jingle. On the top left-hand corner, you can see a pencil. I'm going to turn that on and lock it. And then what that now means is if I tap on there, you can see a faint line, and that's the audio volume. If I change the main volume of that, you'll see that line move up and down, as well as me moving it on the volume meter. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to tap on here, and what it does is it puts a little marker in. So I'm going to put a couple markers in. I could put one there and there as well. So what this means is that I can now move that marker and tell it to automatically adjust. And that one's a little bit late, so we need to move that across. There we go. There we go. Great. So what it's going to do, it's going to play the music, and as it ducks down, we start speaking, and the guest starts speaking, and then as it finishes, the music comes back up again. So I'm going to click done. It'll bring it back to the way it was, and you'll know if there's automation on the track because the actual volume button has a little yellow line around it and a little yellow circle around it, as opposed to a white circle, and that means somewhere there's automation. As I scrub through, you can see that the volume is automatically changing without me doing anything. Okay, so we've made our podcast. What do we do with it? What we can do is we can send it out in a couple of different ways. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit My Songs, which is in the top left-hand corner. That's going to take us out to the browser. And this is song number 12. Now we can rename that. So what I'm going to do is hold down on that one. It's going to give us some options there. So I'm going to click rename and just call it podcast. Done. And then what we're going to do is we can hold it down again, or we can click select in the top right-hand corner, which I'm going to do. Click on the one that says podcast, and then we've got some options at the bottom here. So we've got share, duplicate, move, and delete. So we're going to go to share. Now this is where it's going to bring up either song, ringtone, or project. So the differences are the song or podcast is the MP3, or the ringtone saves it as a ringtone, but it's got to be under 30 seconds. That's not what we want for this. And then the project sends the project, the GarageBand project, to someone else. If you've got someone you're working with on a podcast, and they are working on the other side of it, and they're working on GarageBand either on a Mac or a Logic even, you can actually send this to them and they can open it up. Or if you just want to send the MP3 to, say, a third-party app like Anchor that sends out podcasts, you'd pick Song. So we're going to pick Song today. I'm going to leave it in high quality, 192 kilobits per second, and then you can change the name, like I've got there, John Paul, JP's Podcast. You can also put a cover image down, so if you've got an image available, you can use that as well. We click Share, and then it's going to actually ask us what are we doing with it, where are we putting it. So, for example, we've got put it in iTunes, we can open it in different apps, we can click more and see if there's anything else there. The other options you've got is we can copy it over to, say, like Anchor, as I said before, or you'll have a couple of other options. You could just save it as an MP3 in your Files app. So I hope that explains a little bit more of how you can use GarageBand iOS for podcasting. Drums in GarageBand iOS. There's a couple of different ways we can get drums into GarageBand. When we launch a new document and we go over to the tracks option, we've got drums here, and we've also got a drummer. So with drums, we have acoustic and electronic drums, we've got the smart drums, and we've got the beat sequencer. I'm going to start with the acoustic drums. Acoustic and electric drums are a multi-touch instrument that you can just play. We can hit them individually. And then when you hit record, it's going to give you a 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got the same top control bar area at the top and the ruler with 8 bars. We can change that if we want to, as we know. And we can physically play that in. In the middle of the play area, you've got SoCal. That's the name of the drums. And we can change that. So we can go to something like the retro rock one, and it'll change it across. Or we can go to classic studio rock, and it'll change the way it looks. And on the left-hand side of that, these are all the acoustic drums. You've got the electronic drums as well. So if I pick, say, something like the Deep Tech, it shows you the electronic drums in a slightly different way. Now with them being electronic as opposed to acoustic, you've got things like drive and crush, low cut and high cut as well. So you can tap them and just play them directly in. The next section I want to show you on drums is smart drums. So this is a way of bringing in a drum pattern by just a couple of quick choices. So we're going to click smart drums. This brings up a grid which has quiet, loud, simple and complex, and then the kit that we've used on the left hand side. So at the moment we've got the hip hop drum machine, and on the right hand side we've got all the elements that make up that drum machine. So we've got all there, and you can just tap them and hear what they sound like. And what I can do is I can drag the kick to somewhere like there, and it'll just start playing. Drag the snare just there. Cool. Underneath the icon where it says hip hop drum machine, there's a button which is an off button. So to stop all this, you wouldn't press stop at the very top. This is where you press stop. It's like an on-off switch, and you can then reset them. There's also a dice at the bottom. If I just press on that dice, it just randomizes it for me. I can press it again. And press stop again. So what I can do is I can hit record, it'll give me a 1, 2, 3, 4, and then what I can do is I could record that phrase straight in. I could even change that phrase while it's recording, and I'll show you that right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use 4 beats, not 8, for this demonstration. Okay, and then I'm going to hit record at the top. It's going to give me a 1, 2, 3, 4, and then start playing with the beat, and I'm going to move them around as I record them. See them move around because it's remembered it. Great. Now what I can do as well is I can change the kit if I want to, and we've got a couple of ones there which are both acoustic and electronic. There are more kits available in the sound library. The next section for drums is the beat sequencer. I'm going to launch that now. So with the beat sequencer, what you have is you have all the different elements of the drums on the left hand side, a little bit like you'd have all the different elements of a song. And you can even scroll down and add some more in if you want to. At the bottom there, the little plus, you can add all the different elements there. And what you've got on the screen is you've got 16 squares. So 16 squares to actually build up a beat and a track. At the bottom, you've got a load of options here. So we've got an on-off switch right in the middle. On the left-hand side, we've got which kit we're using. And then Apple have created some patterns for you. You can create your own, or we can actually select a pattern. And then we've got the dice again to randomize a pattern. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create my own pattern, and as I start tapping, it'll automatically switch on and start playing it. Press the green off button, and that will switch it back off again. I can add other elements of this drum kit if I want to, or what I can do is I can keep that pattern, and the bottom left hand corner where it says modern 808, I can tap it and I can use a different pattern, just like I'd use a different drum kit. So I can click on the retro rock. It's going to keep the same pattern there, turn it on, but it's now playing the retro rock instead of the 808. Great. So these 16 blocks is a section of a kit. We can hit record and it'll just play it. And again, we can add more bits and bobs into it as it's recording, or take some stuff out of it as well. What I'm going to show you as well is there's a little eye next door to the on switch. When you click on that, it just gives you a bit of information. So the length of this is 16 steps. You can increase that to 64 steps, so it's basically 4 of those. And you've got a couple of other bits as well where the step length is 1/16 of a note. You can get it to play forwards or backwards, whether it's got a swing on it or not. So you can make it really, really interesting. On the right hand side, we're now turning basically to the actual blocks themselves. And first of all, you've got the step on off. That's what we're on right now. So whether we turn it actually on or off and whether it's going to play or not. The next one after that is velocity. And then if you tap that, what it does is it shows you how hard the actual individual instrument is being hit or played. And what you can do is you can hold down on one of them, it expands a little bit, and you can say, well, actually I want it about there. It's really, really good to do with the hi-hats because it just gives it a bit more of a human feel. So we can drag them down, and then on the third one, make it really loud, and then make these a little bit quieter. So now if we play it, just gives it that little bit of a feel with how hard you would hit it. You wouldn't hit everything the same if you were like a natural drummer. Electronic would, but you can even change that as well. The next one after that is note repeat. So with note repeat, you can say, well, actually within that, I want you to do things like a triplet. So with this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say I want 3 notes in there. So now with this one, I'm going to do the same. There we go. Oh, I did 4. I want to do 3. There we go. And then what you'll do is you'll hear quick notes within that one little note. So you can hear that little drill there that's going through. And that's note repeat. The one after that is chance. Now I really like this one because what it does is it basically gives it a very human feel of if it is going to be hit or not, and the chance of it being hit. So it's at 100 for everything, so it's going to hit everything all the time. But it's quite useful if you want to just randomize the drum kit, or if you want to just make it a little bit more human. So again, I'm just going to hold down on one of them, and it expands from 100 right up to 1. So we can go about 70% of the time that's going to get hit. That one's about 75, and we'll put that at 70. So we can play that now. And of course, it might hit it, it might not. It uses a little bit of an algorithm to figure that out. The last one is loop start stroke end. So if you go loop start stroke end, what you can do is you can turn around and say, well, actually, even though it's 16 bars, I only want the claps to be 4 bars, or I want it to be 8 bars only on the hi-hat, and then go back again. So you can have different lengths for different parts of the kit. And that's really, really clever. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this one to just 4. And then I'm going to drag this one to just 4 as well, and then go back to step on off and do that. So when it gets to the end, it's going to go back to the beginning while the others carry on. There we go. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to have a look at, I've created my little kit on the beat sequencer. I want 4 bars, which I've got at the top there on the ruler, and I'm going to click record. It's going to give me a 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's going to record it in. I can still manipulate this even when it's in record mode. So I'm going to change a couple of things while it's recording. Okay. Now what you'll notice is obviously the ruler's now gone green to say it's been recorded, but also it automatically switches the beat sequencer off, otherwise you're going to end up with double, and that you won't hear the changes. So it automatically switches that off, which is really clever, and then it doesn't play the beat sequencer because it's already playing in the main song. So if we go to the view edit page now, you can see the representation of what I've done, including all the little changes there as well. So the next element of drums is actually the drummer. What I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll across, and we've actually got a virtual session drummer. Again, this is different than you actually composing the beat. This is actually just telling it a style and what you can use it for. So we've got acoustic and electronic, so I'm going to go acoustic. And what this does is it automatically brings up a beat. So we've still kept the 4 bars there. I'm going to change this to 8 bars. There we go. And then what you'll notice is it'll loop it. If you've got it as 8 bars as standard, what you can do is you can actually have it unlooped and you can just have it stretch out as full 8 bars. You can have 16 bars, 32 bars, it's entirely whatever you want. So you've already got almost like a pre-recorded piece there, and it's going to change depending on what we do with the play area. So at the top you've got a drummer, and all the drummers have got names, they've even got backstories, and if you click on that, that's Kyle. And we've got Logan, we've got Darcy, we've got Mason. You can get more drummers. We've got electronic drummers as well. And as I said, just gives you a bit of information of what kind of style they play. We're going to stay with Kyle for now. And then next door to Kyle is all his different beats, the kind of beats that he plays. So we've got Half Pipe as a beat, Echo Park, Crash the Party. So we're going to stick with Half Pipe for now. So underneath Kyle, you can see the drum kit, and that is his drum kit, what he's playing. So we can select the parts of the drum kit he's going to play, and it won't let you select all of them because he doesn't have enough hands for that. So it is a real virtual session musician. So we've got the kick drum, the snare, the hi-hat. If I was to collect the cymbals, it's not going to select the hi-hat, so you can do that, or if I select the toms as well. So the kick and the snare are always there, but you can take them out if you want to as well. One thing you can do is you can add a bit of percussion. So we've got a tambourine, a shaker, and claps. And you'll notice on the right-hand side, for each of these, there are different selections. So we've got a couple of different versions. So we've got 1, 2, and 3 for percussion. We've got 4 for hi-hats, and kick and snare. We've got 5, 6, 7 is half speed, and 8 is double speed. So let me just show you the difference. So that's 5. Go with a different one. So this is still the half pipe beat, but I'm actually manipulating that. Now if we go for 7, it'll change the kick and the snare to half the time. And then if we go to 8, which is 2 times, cool. And that's just one beat, and we can manipulate that one beat. At the bottom you've got fills, that's basically a gauge of how much he's going to put fills in naturally. We've got on the right hand side an XY pad, which is very similar to the Smart Drums one. So you've got soft, loud, simple or complex. So we're just telling him actually we want it soft but complex, and it'll change in the top there. You may notice the actual ruler will actually show you the difference. If I put it really loud and complex, or if I put it simple, you can see the actual waveform changing. I'm going to put it somewhere just in the middle, but a little bit louder. So what we can do is we don't need to hit record for this, it's already set in. So if we go to the track view, it's already there and ready to roll. Now the great thing as well is you can add 2 drummers. One is a drummer and the other one as a percussion as well. So we can go back in, let's add another one, and we can go in there and pick percussion if we want to. So we can pick another drummer. Let's go with, let's have a look, let's go with Mason. And we could take that out. We can add a couple bits more round, let go, and we need to go like that. Let's do that instead. So let me just go back to the edit view there. So we've still got Kyle, and we've got Mason as well. And there are some more in the sound library that you can download, and there's some specific percussive ones that you can download as well, which will complement a full kit as well. So I hope that gives you some context into what you can do with drums and the drummer in GarageBand. Thank you very much for watching. In GarageBand iOS. The keyboard is one of GarageBand's multi-touch instruments, and we've got a couple of different ways we can play it, and we've got a couple of different elements for using the sounds inside, but also using things like the sampler as well. So I've launched it here in the instrument browser. We've got keyboard on screen, we've got things like smart piano, synth and sampler, and then we've got more sounds. So I'm just going to tap in the main area where it says keyboard. It'll bring up the last keyboard I used, which I was using the smart ones, I'm just going to bring it back to the main keyboard, how you would look at it first. So this is the grand piano, and in an earlier video we did go through some of this, but I'm going to show you a couple of more elements for it as well. So we've got things like the piano itself, and then what you've also got as well is you've got an instrument chooser with inside the piano. So it says grand piano, we can tap on that. We've got access to keyboards. We've got things like synthesizers, basses, pads, effects. So we could go into a synth pad, for example, and pick one of those. And it's going to change the background of the play area to fit that sound. So what I want to show you is that no matter which instrument you've got, you may have different controls, but the bottom part, just above the keyboard itself, has got a couple of options that stay across the board. So we start with the octave selector, that's always there, and the sustain is always there as well. So I can hold an E down, hold sustain, and it'll stay playing until I let go. I can also lock it, as I said before, so you can hold that down and I'm not touching anything, it'll just keep that there until I unlock it. One thing to be mindful of course, is if it's not an instrument or sound that naturally degrades, it's going to play and just continue to play. Now, I explained a couple of different things like glissando. So glissando is where I just drag my finger up and down the play area and it plays that note in sequence. We've also got scroll, which we've explained before. So if I hold that down and move, the keyboard physically moves. So instead of pressing the octave up and octave down, this will do it for you as well. There is a third option, which on some of them, and it depends on which one you're using. So for example, this one is pitch. And what you can do is, as I hold my finger, a blue light appears underneath the note. That's just a different way of playing. So of course, if you're doing things like a lead, it's quite useful. Or if you just want to pitch bend beyond the normal wheel, you can do that. So I'm going to leave this on glissando for now, just for normal playing. And then next door to that, we've got scale. Now, I went into a little bit into this at the beginning, but this is a really clever way of just taking out the notes you no longer need. So I'm going to go into major blues, and then it's just going to give me a major blues scale. I'm going to change the sound so you can hear it a little bit more clearly. So let's go with let's have a soul organ. And it's going to keep the play area the same, but change the control area. So that's in a major blues scale. I'm going to change that again for minor blues. Now it's all based around C. If I want to change that, what I can do is go up to the right hand side at the top where the little spanner icon is, and then what you can do is we can pick the key signature for this song. So if I say I want it in A, you'll notice now that the play areas are all beginning and ending in A. Or I can put it into, let's have a look, it's A major, but I would then still in a minor key, but we can go minor. And then we can just change it back to C. Now, why is this useful? It's useful if you are, I say, a guitarist, but you don't know how to play the piano, or vice versa. If you're a pianist and you don't know how to play the guitar, you could use the virtual instrument of the guitar, for example, and change it to this. We've got a normal keyboard here, and the reason for that is because next door to scale, we've got a little keyboard icon. And this has a couple of different options. We can widen the keys so they're nice and big. can go a little bit thinner and then a little bit thinner again. And the other option you've got as well is you've got 2 keyboards instead of 1. And we can still change the size. So we've got the lower ones at the bottom and the higher ones at the top. It's very useful on an iPad or even a keyboard for an iPhone, and you haven't got a lot of room, so you can do things like that with this one. So with an iPad, we've got more room, so we can actually have more keyboard. The next sort of that is the arpeggiator, and we've gone through that before, but this obviously we just turn that on. Now it does give us a couple of different options which we didn't go into. So you've got the note order, you can say as it's played, or we can say up and down. So if I just do up and down, cool, and it's doing 2 octave range. I can do 1 octave range. And then what we can do is we can change, let's just go as played, and also we can do the note range is 32s. So it's really, really useful. There's no way I could play it that fast on something like this, but you could obviously use the arpeggiator if you're recording one track where you need something quite quick. Also very useful for electronic music as well. And you can change that whenever you want. Hit record, record it in, and then change it for something else, hit record, and that'll keep it there as well. So obviously it's as it's being played. So I'm just going to turn that back off, and that goes back to white. And then we've got the chord sequence scale, so we can actually use this, which is what we call the smart keyboard. And that's just dragging your finger up and down one finger. And if you know exactly what chord you want, but you don't know how to play it on a keyboard, this is a perfect way. Now, what if these chords are not the ones you need? So what you can do is, they've got, say, it says there E minor, A minor, C, F, things like that. 2 things. What you can do is we can change the key signature. So I go A, it's going to give you all the relative ones around A, and you can see that it's changed. But now we're in this format, what it shows you is in a brand new one, it says, literally says edit chords. So I'm going to go back to C, and then I'm also going to go to edit chords. What this now does is it brings up which chord you want. So I don't want a diminished, I want an augmented 6th, 7th even. With the G, I want to make it a minor. So you can see very quickly you can add things in. You can even add in a different bass. So I want a C bass, but with a G minor. Okay. So that's just a quick look at how you can actually change the chords when you're in the play area. Now this also still works with autoplay. So then if we turn autoplay on, we keep the same chords that we've chosen, and then you can obviously get it to play. The other thing as well is you've got a couple of different controls depending on what you use. So on this one you can see there's a bit of distortion there. So we can dial that distortion up or down on the soul organ if we want to. And again, the recording process is the same as it's always been. So we hit record, it's going to give you 4 in, and then depending on whether you've got it on 8 bars, 4 bars, or automatic, it'll just carry on recording. The last bit of the keyboard I want to show you is the sampler. And the sampler we touched on previously, but I want to go a little bit deeper into it. So you've got this start here where we can record a new sample, and it's using the microphone from the iPad. And then when it hits start, it records, it'll record anything, and then you can either play it or you can manipulate it. So I'm going to record something percussive instead of something where I sing or shout something. So just press start and it records, and then press stop after I've finished recording. You can see there's a waveform with the claps that I put in. So I can, if I hold it down, it's going to go through the wall. I like the last one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim this just to the last one. A little bit of a gap there. That's just that's the end of it. There we go. Let's go a little bit in. There we go. If you hold your finger down on the edit bar that you're moving, it actually zooms in for you automatically. So we can put it right on the edge there. There we go, fantastic. And then I can trim that down. Now I can use that just basically as any other sort of percussive tool, or what I can do is I could loop it, and then it's based on the amount of space I've got in between the time. I can also reverse it. And also what you can do is there's a couple of things here for tune, shape and trim. So we can trim that as we have been doing. The tuning is obviously we can fine tune or coarse tune it. What it does is it gives us a tone at the same time, so we can figure out where it is in relative to the pitch. We'll leave that where it is at the moment. And then the shape is how quickly it attacks and decays. So we've got it on reverse at the moment. And we can go to my sample. So we've got this other extra bit here, which is your library. And what you can do is you can actually record different bits. We can rename them. And there's also a library where Apple have given us a couple of sounds to play with. So for example, we've got a giggle there.
Oh, oh.
Party horn. So it just gives you an idea that it doesn't have to be something musical. It could be something percussive or just a recording out in the street where you find something and then add it in to the sampler. The other thing you can do as well is you've still got a mod and a pitch wheel, so you can use that. And one thing I quite like to do just to record a sound is maybe record an R or a hum or and then you'll have a choir. But you have to be careful, obviously, of the pitch range because if you play it too high, it can sound quite chipmunky. So if I just do this now. Okay, so I'm going to trim that in. I'm going to loop it so that it continuously plays. Let's go at one. So you can hear the click there where it's actually sampling and looping round. But you can like do a couple of things where you can tune it and obviously shape it in the way you want. So I hope that gives you an insight into the keyboard inside Garageband. As I say, there's a couple of options there, and of course you can always record them straight in. The last thing I wanted to go through with any of the smart instruments or the multi-touch instruments is the sound library. Apple keep releasing new loops, new sounds, new instruments, and it's exactly the same for the keyboard. So when you go into it, there's a load of packs that you can download. They're free, and they just download straight inside GarageBand. Be aware, it does obviously increase the size of GarageBand as an app itself, as they release more packs, so make sure you've got plenty of space. I hope that gives you some information regarding keyboards. Thank you for watching. Quantize and MIDI on Garageband iOS. So Quantize is being able to shuffle notes that have been played into a grid, and MIDI obviously is how notes are played in GarageBand itself. So we're going to go into one of the songs I've prepared, which is right here. Now this has a drummer, a percussion section, and 2 loops that I've just pulled in over an 8-bar stretch. So I'm just going to play this for you now. So let's just give you an insight of the song that we're working on. So I've got basically a keyboard here, which is an electric piano, and what I want to do is I want to play over the top of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double tap on the piano, and what we've got is we've got it set up, ready to roll. I've widened the play area just so I can play and try and not make mistakes. But if I do make mistakes, that's okay, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how we can change the play after it's been recorded. So I'm going to hit record, and I'm not deliberately going to be playing very well. There is obviously a reason for that, so we can re-edit and change what we're going to do. So please bear with me while I make this recording. I don't want to hear that back, as I'm sure we can both agree that was awful. And that's the point. The whole point of MIDI is that it records every note you play, the velocity of it, and where it was positioned. So we can change those things to actually make it A, in sync, and B, in tune. So let's get to that now. Okay, so we've got our track played in, and we can see it's in there now. From the ruler's gone green. We don't need the keyboard anymore. We've got actually the recording we need. So we're going to go to the edit view, and there is our playable area, which we can see there in green. Now we've got, in Garageband, we've got 3 different colours. So you've got yellow, we've got blue, and we've got green. If it's yellow, it's drummer, and that's a session drummer is going to play for you. If it's blue, it's audio or loops. And if it's green, it's MIDI. So MIDI is a bit like a piano roll, where when it goes across, it's going to hit that trigger to say play that note at that specific time. So we've got this 8-bar phrase, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to tap on the played area, the actual recorded area, tap it again, and if we go into settings first of all. Now in settings, what we can do is we can see a couple of different things. We can change a couple of different elements. So we can say, well, we want it quantized, which means that imagine we have notes that are being played over a grid, and if it's just out of that grid, it can snap into that grid so it's in perfect time. So we can actually turn quantization on, and we can say whether it's a straight quantization, triplet, or swing. So I'm going to just do 16 notes. And you may have noticed when I did that, if you look very carefully, and I'm going to do that again, I'm going to say none, and I'm going to do 16 notes again. Look what happens to the green area with the actual notes that are played. Did you see them shift? So they shift ever so slightly to the nearest part of the grid, the 16th of the grid. Now it's still a terrible recording, so we need to go in there and do some editing. I can go 8 notes, and it moves it to the 8th note, or the 16th note, the closest you can get to. The other thing you can do here is we can actually do a bit of transposition. So we can do things like move the octave up or do a semitone. So let's say we've got something played, and then actually later down the line the project changes key. We can actually move that up in semitones, and we can move it in an octave as well. We can also do a couple of clever things where we can use speed. So we are going to listen to it again and say, I do apologise, it wasn't the best recording in the world, and that's deliberate. So if we just play it now. Okay, so what we're going to do is, if we go into settings, I can actually say, do that in 2 times. And what it's going to do is just squeeze it from 8 bars into 4 bars, but play it the whole thing. So if you've got a lead you want to play, you can play it at half speed and then times it by 2, and then obviously it'll play in the right speed if you wanted to. The other option, of course, is you can go the other way and you can make it half the speed. You can even reverse it and everything is backwards. We're going to leave that alone for now and click done. And then the second half of this is we're going to go into the actual MIDI notes themselves. So we're going to go into changing the actual notes in MIDI. So to do that, we're going to click on the play area. It'll light up. We'll click it again, and then we've got this menu and we go into edit. This now brings up a whole new window, and we would have seen this earlier on in automation where it brings up a automation window. So this one now is a play window. So I can use my finger and scroll through it. I can even pinch as well to make it bigger or smaller. or wider or thicker as well. And we're basically stretching the timeline where we can see what's going on and where things are going on as well. So we can see that where the notes I played and where I played them. And also, if we go deeper in, you'll notice that Garageband changes the times so we can see which notes it's snapped to. So very quickly, if we go from the beginning, we can see this is literally just bar 1 of 8. And if I scroll that out, we can see all the different bars there. So it might be that actually being in 16th notes quantization was a bit too much. We only need it in 8th notes. So this is a great way of finding that out. And what we can do is we can have a quick look. Yep, so you can see the note there. We can change things like velocity, I'm going to go into in a second. So as you tap each note, you get a little menu. So you can go cut, copy, delete, or velocity. So I can cut that out, I can copy it, I can delete it, of course, and velocity. And then underneath that, when you actually tap on it, you'll see there's a little, tiny little white arrows pointing either way. And if you hold on that, you can actually extend the note or make the note shorter. Of course, when you tap on it, the quite nice thing as well is on the keyboard itself, that lights up in the note that's been played, so at least you can reference where it is. Of course, you can make it closer to it so you can see which note it is, but it's just a nice little reference. So what I'm going to do is I've figured out now that I want this in 8ths, not 16ths for quantization. So I'm going to come out of edit mode for a second, go into the play again, click settings, and instead of 16ths, I'm going to tell it to go with 8ths. Then when I've done that, I'm going to go back into edit mode and we can actually see the change it's made. We can drag the playhead further and along if we want to, and I'm going to play it. So that beginning is not right. None of it's right, to be honest with you. But what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at changing that. So we're going to go, that's the wrong note. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold that down. And I want to put it there. I can move that one to there. Let's have a quick look. So we can see very quickly you can alter them. So we've got it now in time, got dun 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 dun, and that's what we wanted. And I'm not going to go through all of this for you, but I just wanted to show you very quickly how you can actually put that through. Now I played a couple of intricate bits at the beginning, and then the second half is all one single notes. So now they're all in time, they're just not in tune. So the last three. That's great. So the other thing you can do is, of course, you can write MIDI directly in here. So we've been playing with the MIDI that's already been played in. What you can do is in the top left-hand corner, you'll see a little pencil. We can lock that pencil, and what that now means is that we can actually write the MIDI if we want to. The other thing you'll notice is when you do that, it comes up with a little bar which is sustain. So if you want to play a note and then hold the sustain down like a chord, you can actually write the sustain in as well. I want to go back into one of the notes just to show you that specific note, and you've also got this option for velocity. So velocity is how hard that note was hit, either really, really softly or really, really hard. Of course, that changes depending on what sound you've got. So we can go into the velocity and we can change the velocity of that sound so it's middle of the road or quite quiet or quite loud. So I just wanted to show you that as well because it's very, very useful if you've got something in there that's quite robotic and you want to humanize it a little bit for a bit of a natural play. You can go in and edit these as well. If you are stuck with MIDI, you can click the question mark in the top right hand corner, and what it's going to do is it's going to show you a couple of ways that you can actually do note editing. So we've learned how to do quantization, we've learned how to stretch a piece, and also we've learned how to go in and actually edit the notes. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you soon. And in this video, I want to show you strings in Garageband iOS. So in GarageBand we have a couple of multi-touch instruments, and I'm going to go over the strings. And we've got strings, we've got smart strings, notes and scales, and then more sounds. Now before we go into that, when I go through the bass, the guitar and the world instruments, you also have the same. So you have smart, notes and scales. And with the world, it just shows you the different instruments, but you still have those elements as well. So with strings, when we tap on strings itself, it'll load this up, and then you've actually got access to multi-touch instruments, and I'm just going to pop it back to the way it normally is. Now you've got chords and notes at the very top right hand corner, and if you go into notes, it's only going to play one specific string element, so a viola or a cello or a bass or a violin. You can tap on them and pick which one you want. So if I pick the viola, I can click scale and use the scale system just like we can do with the keyboard and any other multi-touch instrument. There's a bronze little bar on the left hand side, and if you tap on that and hold it down, doing there. So if you actually strum up and down, it'll bow it, or if you hold it down and just tap on it, it goes pizzicato. Now the other option is chords, and this is where it brings 5 elements of strings together. So we've got first and second violins, violas, cellos and basses. Now this system you can use just like you can with any of the other multi-touch instruments, and you can change the chords if you need to, and also change the root chord in the settings. So again, if you just tap on it, it'll go pizzicato, but for the whole ensemble, okay. And then if you were to rub your finger up and down like bowing, it will play them as if they're using a bow. Now the reason I want to go over strings is there's a couple of nice little things here. So obviously we've got 5 different sections. One thing you can do is you can tap on them and take them out. So let's just say I don't want second violins and I don't want violas, and we just want the first violins, the cellos and the basses. You can do it like that. And then what you can do is you can highlight them back in. On the left hand side you'll see it says cinematic. If you tap that, you've got access to 4 different kinds, so cinematic, modern, pop and romantic. So if we go to pop, take that out. You play slightly differently, a slightly different sound, which is quite nice. And then also on the right hand side, underneath notes or chords choosing, you've got autoplay. So if we go to autoplay, you'll notice those lines go away, and we just pick it and it'll start playing. Which is quite nice. So again, the top bar is never changing in the sense that basically all the same controls are there. You've got your metronome, you've got everything there at the top, and then what you can do of course is hit record. You've got your ruler underneath, which of course you can dictate. It's set to 8 bars, but you can dictate it yourself, and then obviously record what you need in. So if I hit record, and I'm just going to use auto play, and then I'm going to play a couple of bars. There we go. So if we go to the track view, we can actually have a look at that, and again it's in MIDI, so we can see that. And then what you can do as well is, which I like to do, is go into the settings of MIDI and go to quantize and just make sure they are all in the same place. It can play them slightly out on autoplay, which give it a sense of realism. If you do quantize, it will be very robotic, but it's entirely up to you. It's personal choice. So it's quite nice. So we can add more strings if you want to. So we can go in and add another set of strings. Now one thing that's quite nice you can do is you can start adding things like just the basses and cellos as one play, and then you could play the violins and the violas as a second play. You could even change it, so we've got romantic and we use autoplay. So if I was to record that on top, using the same chords. So when we go back into the track view, what I'm going to do is just swipe across, and obviously I can bring one up against another and just change the volume slightly, just to give that a little bit of different kind of sound. I can even go in and we can go into the track settings here and give this a little bit of an echo or a reverb if I want to. And it's just a nice thing. So just wanted to go over strings for you, just a quick tutorial on how to use them. And the other thing, of course, is don't forget this is all MIDI, so we can go into what you've recorded. You can go into edit and we can change the notes depending on where they are and what time you played them as well. Thank you very much for watching. Mixing on a Garageband iOS. Now I've got a song here which is called Idea for Song, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to launch that. We've got a couple of different tracks. I want to break it down, show you them, and then show you how we can do a little bit of mixing on Garageband. So first of all, let's have a listen to the track as it is, just recorded. It's 8 bars long, just an idea, and we've got all the volumes at the same level. Okay, so we've got a couple of things going on there. We've got the strings that I popped in an earlier video. We've got a percussion, we've got a sample, which is me going and clapping. And then we've got a full drum kit, we've got a bass, we've got 2 vocals, one on top of the other, one's a harmony. We've got a koto, we've got a guitar, and we've got a grand piano. So there's a lot going on in this track. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to swipe from left to right on the icons, and what that's going to do is going to bring up the volumes. The only thing that's a little bit different, which was done on the last video, was one of the strings was dropped down in volume just a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically drop things out. Now I've got all different colours here, so we've gone through this before, but I want to show you again. So yellow is drummer, which is a session drummer. Green is MIDI, and blue is audio, so either a sample or something you've sung in or played in yourself. So what I like to do first of all is I like to get things just ordered up. This is just me, this is what I like to do. So if you'd like to move things around, all you've got to do is hold down on the icon, and then what you can do is you can reorder everything if you want to. So what I like to do is get all the percussive and drum sounds at the top. That sample is me clapping, so I'm going to put that at the top as well. Then I'm going to put the bass, and then we're going to put all the other instruments. So we've got the strings there, we've got the bass and guitar, and I put all the guitars together, then a piano, and then we've got the world instruments there and have the vocals at the bottom. Now you may work in a completely different way, it's entirely up to you. This is just my specific choice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the drums and then also bring the bass in, and then what we'll do is we'll have a look and see where we can mix it. Okay, so we've got a basic set there, but what I want to do is I want to go a little bit deeper into one of them. So the claps was just me clapping literally with the microphone of the iPad. So what I want to do is I want to add a little bit of texture to that. So in the top bar, we've got the three little, look like three little faders, and that is settings. So what we can do here is we can actually add things, and you're going to make sure that you've got the track selected, so it's affecting this track. And then what we're going to do is we're going to bring a couple of different things in. So we've got things like, we've got a compressor that's there at the moment, and we can switch that on. And then we've also got an EQ as well. And the visual EQ is really, really good. It's taken from Garageband on the Mac. And what we can do is we can change a couple of different things as we go along. We can add more notes in as well if you want to. You can even analyze it. So let's have a listen and see what it's doing. It's fine, cool. So if we click done, that'll bring us back out again, and we've got, obviously we can turn the compressor on as well. Now the other thing I want to do is I want to bring in a little bit of the reverb there. We've got that there, and a little bit of echo. So these are master effects, so these are effects that affect the entire project, not just this one. So we've got different effects there for both echo and reverb. It's on a default at the moment. We can do things like put the whole thing in a chamber or a club or a large hall. It's entirely up to you. So we're going to put that there. I'm going to just bring that in just a little bit, and we're going to bring the compressor in as well. Bring a little bit of the treble up. Let's have a quick listen to that. So just gives a little bit of an element to it. And then obviously we can just keep adding things in if you want to. And then we've got the visual EQ you can use on every single track, which is brilliant. And of course, having that screen there, being able to do that, being able to basically just grab it with your finger, it's really, really intuitive. So I'm going to start bringing other things in. But one thing I want to do is with the grand piano, I have an idea already that what I want to do is I want to actually make it really reverb. So let's bring it all the way up there, and we're going to bring that track volume back in, and we'll have a listen to it. And the other thing you can do, of course, is we can look at the settings. So what I want to do is I want to take you through these bits. So we've got track settings as well as track output. So the output is obviously the different kind of effects. We've also got track settings. So this is another place where you can go into quantization if you need to, and you can say, right, straight quantization or swings or triplet. You can also transpose it as well. So imagine if you've got a track from someone else and you're working on it, and the vocalist says, actually, I need it to be 2 semitones up. You could bring it 2 semitones up and then send it to them, which is very, very useful. Because keep the original recording and just transpose it up without you having to go and edit, select all, move them all up, which you can do in the green area, but this is just so much easier to just go, do you know what, transfer it, or let's take it an octave higher. So if I just take that an octave higher, and we have a little listen. So it's keeping everything there, which is really useful. I'm going to keep that like that. So what we want to do is, I'm just going to stop that. I'm going to bring in there with the reverb, that's fine, and then the output there. And of course we've got pan as well, so we've got pan on every track, so you can pan them sort of left and right. This is really useful if you've got multiple vocals, you've got harmonies, you can pan them out, and you don't want everything right down the middle, you want everything, a bit of a spatial awareness. So we're going to bring a little bit into everything there with a couple of pans. I want those claps to be on the right hand side. The drums I'm going to leave, and the percussion I'm going to leave, mainly because with drummer it kind of spaces it out already. If it's a single like clap or a single hit or something like that. You might want it far left or just over there. I always think of it as if I'm looking at a band on stage. They're not all standing in front of each other. They're spaced out, so it gives you a bit more spatial awareness. But if you want some cool effect, you can actually obviously move them really, really hard to one side or the other. But with the pan on the drums, normally because it's sort of stereo out, I just leave it as is because it's already been sort of spatially made that way. So I'm going to start bringing all the stuff back in. Great. Now, one thing you might notice as well when I bring these two in, you can actually see it where one vocal was recorded quite quietly and the other one was recorded a bit louder. I did that deliberately just to show you obviously how we can affect this. So we can obviously bring these in equally, and you probably won't hear the top one. And of course, the other thing we can do with something that's been recorded is you can still change the sound. And it's just me singing, and that's going, oh, so. Rising up to the note there. But what you can do is if you double tap it, we can still change the effect, depending on what's happening. So even though the recording can't be changed, we can chop up the audio or we could re-record the audio. We can still change the effect of what's going through. So what I'm going to do just give that a little bit of an overdrive, just a little bit of a difference. And then what we're going to do as well is I'm going to bring the other one back in, and I want to pan these out. So obviously there's two different vocals there, so I want to give them a little bit of a pan. So we're going to put this one on this side, and we're going to put this one on this side. Now this one's called Extra Singer. What it does is a little bit of like a doubling effect. So what I'm going to do is bring these back in, and we'll see where they are. So I've just gone into where it says pop overdrive, and you would have seen all those different dials. These are all the different ones, so we can go into certain ones where you can change elements of them if you want to. So we can change the compressor on that, we can change the overdrive effect on that where it's been overdriven, and of course we've still got the visual EQ as well. Now it automatically puts that in for you, which is really great because of course it's based on that preset, but you can change it if you want to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this back to the beginning. I'm just going to make some final adjustments. Okay, cool. So that just gives you an insight into how you can we can go into a bit of mixing with Garageband, and also going into the settings, we can apply different effects and also different plugins and different EQs as well. So I just wanted to give you a quick oversight into that, and you can see and play around with that as you see fit. Thank you very much for watching. In this video, we're going to make a Garageband track in 10 minutes. So last time you saw me, I've changed the room around a little bit and we've moved up to an iPad Pro. But that doesn't matter. The functionality of what I'm going to do is exactly the same no matter which iPad you use. Now I've brought an empty track up here. The only thing we've got is a classical grand piano, and you'll notice in the settings of changing the key signature, I'm going to change it over to A minor. If we go over to the tracks view, there's nothing there right now, and we're going to create this track in 10 minutes. So what we'll do is we'll have a look at the time, and we're going to go 3, 2, 1, let's go. Okay, so the first thing I want to do out of this chord structure is change the settings, go to quantization and turn it on to 1/8 note. That'll just shift everything into place. Now, the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use a synthesizer, and I'm going to literally copy this onto the next track. So let's go and use Alchemy Synth, but we're going to change this over to Synth Pads, and the one I want to use is this one. And it sounds like this. But I'm just going to copy the classical grand MIDI notes and then make sure I'm on that one, make sure it's at the beginning, and click paste. So now we've got this. Now at the moment this is only 8 bars, and what I'm going to do eventually is expand this and start moving things in and out. But also I want to play that synthesizer again and just play something over the top. So I'm just going to tap on there and click duplicate. It duplicates the synthesizer without the MIDI notes. So let's change the mod wheel a little bit. Cool, let's get this down. And again, I'm just going to go into settings and I'm just going to put the quantization on to 1/8 note. So if we have a look at our track so far, we've got the classical grand and we've got the 2 synthesizers. Next, I'm going to introduce some loops. So we've got a load of loops here and we're going to introduce some drum loops. So the one I want to use is called Amber Beat. So we've got this, and Amber Beat number 2. Just adds a little bit more to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this in, and then I'm going to expand this to 16 bars. Now this loops automatically, but actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag it so it's only looping 3 times, and then I'm going to put Amber Beat 2 in that final bar. Now what I need to do is I need to introduce a bass line. For this, I'm going to change over, so again we're using the synthesizer, but I'm going to change over to a different sound, which of course is a bass. So the one I want to use is this one called the hip hop sub bass. And then I'm going to change the way you play it over to pitch. So let's get that recorded in. Nice and simple. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go into settings, we're going to go into quantization, go to 1/8 note, you see it just shifts slightly. And then if we tap on it and tap on it again, we've got these options. We're going to click loop, it'll just loop the track. Next up, what we need to do now is we need to add in something that's going to be the main melody. So I'm going to play with a different instrument, and we're going to have a look at a world instrument. So this brings us up nice and quickly. And because I've set this as A minor at the beginning, the root notes are actually set as A. So I'm going to play a little bit of a melody in, and then I might actually re-record this later down the line, but we're going to shift it around a little bit once we've got it recorded. So let's have a play. Great. So what I now need to do is I'm going to record that in as a little melody line, and then later on I'm actually going to drop the sound of it slightly and maybe give it some echo. So let's record that in. You may notice when you get back to the beginning, Garageband might miss the first note. That's because it's processing it, but when you hit play the next time, it's definitely there. So there we go. Now, if we go to the tracks view and we can see all the tracks that we've got so far, we've got the classical grand, we've had that repeated on the synthesizer, we've got another synth on top, the drums, we've got the bass, and we've got now our little tune. And then what I'm going to do as well is I'm just going to add one more thing in, which is in the synthesizer. So let's grab the synth that I want. So the one I've chosen is called ARP Animations, and on Alchemy Synth you can move this around to get exactly the sound you want. So you're kind of mixing in a couple of different things like the delay and the cutoff. So for example, that's kind of where I want it, and that's great. So again, we're going to record this in. Now we could actually have just duplicated the piano sound because I just held it down, but because it's a different sound, I wanted to take my finger off just before we hit the next one to make sure you get that ARP sound in there. So again, what we're going to do is we're going to go into settings, we're going to go into quantization and make sure it is quantized so we're hitting the notes bang on, and then I'm going to loop it. Now we're just about finished, but what we're going to do is I'm going to make this song really, really big now. So let's make this song really big by going up to around about 80 or 70 or 80, 76, let's go to 80. Go to 80 beats. Now you're going to notice straight away everything's going to loop apart from the beats, but we don't want everything to come in at the same time. So what we're going to do is we're going to start messing around by literally just bringing the sliders, the loop sliders, in and out, and then we can start introducing things at different stages. So I'm going to bring this down to here, and then I'm going to bring the bass in straight away. I think that'll be quite nice. And then our little tune there. Let's have a look. We've got our tune, which is that long. So let's bring that in at bar 17. And then just to introduce something new, let's grab that and bring that in over there. So we're going to loop that. Whoops. There we go. We're going to click that and loop that. So it comes in twice. And then we can just bring in these ones. Now to get these ones over, we don't have to loop them. What we can do is we can actually copy and then paste over. Like so. Click paste again. And we've got 3 versions of that. So now what I can do is I can select them all. and then I can drag them to where I need to. So we've now got our tune. Let's have a quick look and have a quick listen. We'll just bring that grand just to the end there. And also we'll just move that to there. Now I haven't done any mixing at this point. I am going to change it over and make things a little bit different by bringing in things like compressors, echoes and reverbs. But let's have a listen to what we've got so far. Now as this is playing, I want to make some changes. So the top, we've got our little controls there. I'm going to make each couple of changes to a couple of different things. Now the last part of this is we can go into effects, and then we can start playing around with the effects and adding things like filters and repeaters, and you can record that as a track, so then it affects the whole track in its entirety. But we've made our track in 10 minutes. The next video is going to be all about exporting this track out into the wide world. And in this last video, we're going to show you our song and how we can get it out of Garageband. So from when you last saw us, we've got this song that we've made. I've added a couple of bits to it and I've changed a couple of things as well. So I'm just going to give you a quick preview. So we start with one of the synthesizers and the bass. And then we bring in the piano, which has been heavily reverbed. Sounds like it's in the background. Then we bring in our main tune. Then further along the line we have a little gap, and then we bring everything in for a little bit of a finale. Then right at the end, we end with this boomer, and we've also got the classical grand just to finish. And that's it. Now, before we start exporting this out of GarageBand, one thing you need to be aware of is how long it is. Now, we've got this up to somewhere like 80 bars. If we export it right now, we're going to have a big gap at the end because there's nothing actually playing. So what I'd suggest you do is just play it back towards the end, listen to where it tails off, and then when it gets to the silence, then that's where you need to stop it. So mine's around about 69 bars. So what we're going to do is we're just going to change this down, and then that way we won't have a big gap at the end. So let's put it to 70 bars just to be on the safe side. So you saw there it moves a little bit. Now, as long as you're happy with your mix and you're happy with the way it sounds, what we're going to do is we're actually going to come out of the main GarageBand window. This might seem a bit strange, but actually this is how you export it. So the top left-hand corner, we're going to press the new button, which is the songs button. It saves it, and you can see this is all the songs, the different things that I've got. And we're going to actually go to My Songs 59, and that's what it's actually called. And we're going to tap it, and what we can do is we can actually give it a brand new name. There we go. So we're just going to give it a brand new name. So I've given it the name Neon Nights. So now what we need to do is we need to export it out. So if we hold our finger down on the track, we get a couple more options in Files, and the option we need is Share. Click on Share, and then it gives us 3 options. Now, I can actually send this out as a project to someone else. So if you're working on it with someone else, you can send it as the actual project the way it is to someone else who's working on GarageBand, and they can open it. The second one is ringtone. There's a bit of fun. You can actually make it into a ringtone if you want to. So you can start making your own ringtones with your own tunes. But the one we want is song. Tap to send your song as a stereo audio file, and that's what we want. So we're going to do that, and then this is where we can actually start changing things. Now, right out of the default, when you actually hit this, it gives you different audio qualities. The minimum I would recommend is high quality, which is 192 kilobits, which is pretty much CD quality. But if you want it completely at the highest quality known to, but if you want it at the absolute highest quality, then you need either uncompressed WAV or uncompressed AIFF or Apple lossless. When you pick uncompressed, then the option for actually adding in things like the artist or the composer or the album actually goes away because it is just a WAV file or an AIFF file. If you go for things like Apple lossless or anywhere in between that, then you can add in some more information. So you can have the artist, the composer, and the album name. You can even add in a cover image as well, which will be imported directly into things like Apple Music or iTunes. But what we want is an uncompressed WAV because we want that at the highest quality possible. We're also going to be sending that out to our music distributor as well. So uncompressed WAV is the one that I need. So we click Share, then it asks us where we're going to put it. So there's loads of places we can do it. We can save it to files. I can share it with a couple of different apps. But the big one I want to share it with is Audio Share. So I'm going to scroll across here, and you can see there we've got Audio Share right at the top. So if I tap it onto Audio Share, it's now going to bring it up. We've got Neon Nights. So I've asked it to go to Audio Share, so we can see there it's neonnights.wav, and it's there, and then I can play it straight away. Should I need to actually send it out from Audio Share, I can press there, and I can save it to files or send it to wherever I need to. So the alternative you can do if you don't want to use Audio Share is you can click Save to Files. Then what it'll do is ask you where in your iPad or your device you want to save it to. So I hope you've enjoyed that. My name's JP, and I've been here for Warrior Sound.